True or false? Solomon paints a real picture of old age. Yes, he paints a real picture of old age. True or false? Solomon pictures old age as the golden glorious years. Oh, false. Boy, I heard a bunch of falsies there. Oh, no. And that is true. Listen to what he writes in Ecclesiastes 11, verse 8. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. Wow. The days of darkness. I don't think that phrase is just stuck with me now. Okay? And it's because it's just so vivid, is it not? And it's really a much better descriptor of what's coming in old age. Does he warn the young people that they need to get done what needs to be done early in life because old age is coming? Oh yeah, that's Ecclesiastes 12 verse 1. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not. Notice that, evil days. And most of the time when we think of evil, we think of sinful, don't we? That's not the way evil is always used in Scripture. Okay, evil can be used in the sense of being hard, being difficult, being something that is not fun through which to go, and that's what he's meaning here. While the evil days come not, nor the years draweth nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. And there are a lot of older people who will tell you that they wake up every day. There's really not a lot of pleasure that they are experiencing now in life. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of anguish. There's a lot of sleepless nights. There's just a lot of doctors. There's just a lot of hardship in old age. And then Solomon describes what an older individual goes through there in verses 2, 3, and 4, and even verse 5. Notice what he says. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. We noted that as you get older, your eyesight goes bad, right? Okay? And that's what he's talking about. The sun, the moon, and the stars begin to dim. And then he makes this statement in that verse. He says, the clouds return after the rain. Does anybody remember what that means? What usually comes after the rain? What do we normally talk about after the rain? The rainbow. Everything's wonderful. The clouds, the storm goes away. That's not what Solomon says. Solomon says as you get older, what comes after the rain? The clouds come after the rain. Guess what? It's just another storm. A storm after a storm after a storm. And that's what old age is about. Okay? He makes mention of some other things connected to old age. And the doors shall be shut in the streets. What's that? The mouth, okay, the lips, okay. Our dental problems are a little bit worse. Our mouths don't work the way they used to. We don't want to spit and slobber all over everybody, so we just kind of keep quiet, don't we? How about this next one? When the sound of the grinding is low. What's the grinding? The teeth. Why is it low? Because you lost them. It's hard to grind something you ain't got. Okay. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird. What bird? The rooster. Remember, a lot of elderly individuals get up very, very early. And all the daughters of music shall be brought low. All the things that are pleasurable, very difficult to hear, are they not? Turn up the TV. Okay. I was talking to Mike Wenzel, and Marilyn is living with them, and he said, when I go into my study, if she's watching TV, I have to put on my earmuffs, okay, because she has to have the TV up so loud for her to hear. And I thought, yep, there we are. The daughters of music are what? Low. Turn it up. Or they'll say something like this. What did you say? I'm getting bad about that, Kathleen. That drives her crazy sometimes. And when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way. Rodney and I were talking the other day, and he's there with his dad, and his dad is really struggling right now. And how old's your dad now? 90. Oh, that just reminds me. We had another young lady in here have a 90th birthday, Miss Fern back there. Wow. So 90 years old, but he's really struggling. And Rodney told me last week, he says, Dad really doesn't like me to be away at night. And you just like, why? There's just a sense of security of somebody being there because you have what when you get older? There's just more fears that develop. And the fears, they can sometimes be real, and sometimes they're just perceived fears, are they not? And very, very interesting. Solomon goes on to say this, and the almond tree shall flourish. What do we say that was? Yeah, the gray hair. Okay, the almond tree has that beautiful white blossom when it blossoms, and so there's a lot of gray hair in older age. And he says, and the grasshopper shall be a burden. What does he mean by that? The grasshopper shall be a burden. Yeah, remember just the little things become hard, right? Okay, it doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't want to clean your house anymore. You don't really care if you wash your car anymore. Every little thing, even just getting up, getting dressed, can just be a burden. And, grasshopper's a little thing, isn't it? You can just stomp that grasshopper out or just pick him up and throw him out. But he becomes a burden in old age. So those little things. And then the desire shall fail. Talked about that, didn't we? How your desire shall fail. You don't have the desire to do things that you used to want to do as you get older. And then he says this, because a man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Eventually what comes? Death. And individuals mourn our death. Boy, you can't get a better picture of old age and that which leads up to a person's death. And right here in the book of Ecclesiastes. And one of the questions that I've often asked myself is, why does God let us get old and go through so many difficulties and so many problems the last 10 or 15 years of our life? The Bible doesn't just come out and say, this is why. Okay? But I've got a theory about it. When we're young and we feel good and we're healthy, is it easy not to think about eternity? It's real easy to think about eternity. Not to think about it. I've got eternity on earth. I got heaven on earth, right? Everything's wonderful. Everything is good. I've got no problems. And so a lot of young people don't even think about that which is to come. You get to be 70, 80 years old, and guess what? You're old. You hurt. You're decrepit, you can't get around like you used to, you don't feel as profitable as you used to, and guess what gets real? Death and eternity, doesn't it? What's on the other side? And so God enables us to kind of prepare and get us ready for something that's better. God doesn't want us longing and yearning for this world. You know that? He wants us longing and yearning for that world to come. And it's difficult sometimes for us to do that. All right, we're in Ecclesiastes 12, verse 6. I want to try to get through at least 3 verses. Notice what he says. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. 4 descriptions of... No. Of what? Death. Yes. 4 pictures of death is what he just gave us. Okay? 4 pictures of death is what Solomon has just... Remember, he's been focused on old age, right? And then he gets to that last point, that last point that we read in verse 5 there. He says, because man goeth to his long home. And now he describes that which takes that individual to that long home. He gives 4 descriptions. A silver cord be loosed. Oftentimes in houses we hang up lights, don't we? Okay? You hang up a light. If you cut the cord from which that light is hanging, what's going to happen to the light? It'll fall and bust, and the light will what? Go out. The silver cord is broken. Okay? So you get this picture of a light that's hanging. You cut the cord, it falls to the ground, the light goes out. That's a picture of what? A picture of death, is it not? A picture of death. Notice the next one. The golden bowl be broken. Okay? As long as a bowl is intact, it's what? It's useful. What kind of bowls did they have way back there in Bible times? They had Tupperware, didn't they? Oh, no Tupperware. What kind of bowls did they have? Yeah, they had bowls made out of pottery, bowls made out of clay, did they not? You drop that thing and guess what happens? It's gone, isn't it? You break it and it's gone. What do you do to that broken bowl? You just throw it away and you have to go buy you a new one, okay? Because those things busted into just little bitty pieces, did they not? So Solomon describes death in that way. The bowl, what? The bowl hits the ground and busts. It's no longer useful. All we want to do with that bowl is what? Throw it away. And isn't that kind of what we do? When death occurs, we just take the person, put them in the ground, and walk away, don't we? Okay? That seems cold, but it's exactly what we do, isn't it? And we go on living our lives because we have to. The third one. Or the pitcher be broken at the fountain. See, we don't understand that because all we have to do, we would say like this, or the pitcher be broken at the faucet. Okay? In the sink. They had to literally go out to a fountain. Okay, go out to, maybe some of you grew up and had to have a well, didn't you? My grandparents had well water, and we had to go out to the well and get all the water that was used in the house, and just buckets when we were at my grandparents. And it was good, man, it was good to taste, but it was work. Let that bucket down, bring it up, bring in 2 or 3 things. If you had to fill up one of those wash tubs, it's even worse. Okay, because those things were pretty big. But if you brought your pitcher, and your pitcher's what? Your pitcher's made of clay, and there you are at the fountain ready to get water, and all of a sudden the pitcher busts. Pitcher's no good, is it? All we do is throw that one away and go get another. And then the last one, the wheel broken at the cistern. He's talking about gathering water from a well, is he not? One of the things if you follow the life of Abraham when he first enters into Canaan, everywhere he went and he settled, the first thing he did was what? Built a well. Okay, because water is essential to life, is it not? And so he built a well. Well, the only way to get the water out of that well is to have some kind of a mechanism to drop that bucket in there and then pull it up. And guess what they had? They had a pulley system. Okay, they had a wheel system. But you go there and you drop that bucket in there and you start pulling that bucket up, and all of a sudden the wheel busts and just falls. What happens? Useless, is it not? Okay, now I can not get the water out of that well like I'd like to. And sometimes those wells were pretty deep. So every one of these are just pictures of what? Pictures of death. Okay? Folks, when we die, and you hate to say this, we become useless. Aren't we? We're good for nothing once we die. Okay? Good for nothing. All of the pictures reveal the end, the termination of something. The lifeline is loosed and falls to the ground. One is rendered idle or useless. Yes, sir.
Something that it shows me here is that materialism will end at that particular time, and the spiritual realm will begin.
Okay. We're going to step into another world, aren't you? And none of these things are going to be valuable to us whatsoever. So very, very interesting. Here's something that I thought about would be interesting. You know, from now on, if you break a cup if you break a platter, if you break anything, you know what you need to think about? That's death. That's like death, right? You know, you drop a picture and that glass breaks, you just throw the glass away, don't you? You know, and so Solomon's trying to get us to be reminded of different ways in the world that God pictures what? Death. And again, I find it so interesting that God has tied almost everything we do physically to a spiritual lesson that He wants us to learn. Wouldn't you love to have Solomon here to talk to us? And the depth he could get into as far as comparing this world with the world to come. And it's just interesting to me with regard to that. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, in the New King James Version, they added, remember your Creator at the beginning of the verse.
Uh-huh.
I wonder if that has any significance along that line too.
I don't know. Well, you know, in the sense that death's coming, you know, and we better remember our Creator because it's going to be, when death comes, the only thing that will matter is whether we've remembered Him and how we've served Him. So very, very interesting comment. All right, let's go to the next verse. Yeah, well, I didn't see your hand a while ago. What you going to tell me about Bill? What did Bill do? But see, Jean did what we talked about in our sermon this morning. Okay? She got into her old age and left what? She left a legacy. Okay? And so her as far as she herself, she's useless, isn't she? As far as her being able to do anything. But her legacy lives on, and that's of vital importance, isn't it? And so we can leave that legacy behind if we will. And that's what Gene and others have done. And we're going to talk about that more in our next lesson that we have for our second worship service. Notice how Solomon describes death. Then shall the dust return unto the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Wow. Accurate description of death. If you were to use a one-word definition for death, what would it be? Huh? Final. Departure. Separation. Okay, that's what death is. Now, death is final, isn't it? Death is a departure, or those are things that happen at death. But as far as telling me a definition of death, death is a separation. Okay? It is a separation of the spirit from the body. Then shall the dust return unto the earth as it was, and the spirit separated from the body unto who? Unto God who gave it. James puts it this way in James 2:26, for as the body without the spirit is dead, the body remains on the earth, and eventually, in the course of time, it decomposes and becomes dust. When we burn up a body, when we cremate a body, all we have done is what? We have hurried up the decomposition process, have we not? All we've done is turn that individual into dust, haven't we? And that's all that's done. A lot of individuals, and I don't particularly like cremation. Some people, You can do whatever you want to with your body. I don't care, you know. I'll probably be cremated if I die first. Okay. Now, I don't know what was so funny about that. I told you I don't like it. Somebody's going to do it to me and you laugh. Now, that ain't funny. It just hurt my feelings. Y'all ought to be standing for... Remember the lesson last week? You need to stand for justice in the world, folks. Goodness gracious. Well, I don't, but I won't have a choice. Kathleen's in charge and it's cheaper. I know exactly how that woman thinks. Okay? Casket, Cadillac. Casket, Cadillac. That decision's easy. Isn't it? Burn him up, boys. Kevin? You ain't lying. I don't know, it's just something that, you know, I really don't care. But there's just something about it. You know, just to look at an urn versus, I like being able to walk by a casket and to see that dead person there, and there's closure. Death has really happened to this person. I know they're not, and it's not for the living. I mean, it's not for the dead. It's for the who. It's for the living. Okay, and I come to understand. I really get to see death there, don't I? Because I see a body. Wait a minute. I see a body, but I also see a lifeless body, right? There's something that used to be there that isn't there anymore. That's death, isn't it? And see, kids don't get to see that anymore, okay? It's good for a 5 and 6 and 7-year-old to walk by a casket and look and see that dead person. That's coming. You know, remember Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes says that it's better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting, right? Because the living will take it to heart. This is going to be me one day. We need to see that. Well, see, we don't see that anymore, do we? We just see a beautiful urn with their picture sitting beside it. And we don't see what death is all about. And it makes a big difference. Jack?
Everybody walked by, but when they took him out, he was going to be cremated. So you still could do that, and just wait. I think you set set up.
Oh, I know.
So when he walked by, it was an open casket, but he was going to get cremated after the funeral.
Yeah, that's a $3,500 expense. Okay. See, it's all money, man. It's all money. I've checked the price. It's around $3,500 to rent a casket, because all the furnishings of that casket that they put in there, once they lay a dead body in there, they have to tear it out and just throw it away. And so it costs about $3,500 or so just to have you put into a casket. And again, Cadillac or casket. Yeah, did y'all hear what she said? She said a Cadillac rides better. Oh man, you could if you had enough money. I find it interesting that the Spirit goes where? The Spirit goes back to God, and folks, God has the responsibility of putting that Spirit wherever He wants to put it. It's His. He was the one who created it, was it not? Zechariah 12 verse 1 says, God formeth the spirit of man that is in him. Okay? As I think about the birth process, okay, a man and a woman have a relationship, and those two seeds come together, okay, or seed comes together is fertilized, and immediately there's what there? There's life. But the only thing the human contributed was the flesh. It was God who at that very moment did what? Put the Spirit there. And then at death, what does God do? He removes the Spirit, doesn't He? And takes it back. It just blows my mind to think about that. Job 34:14 and 15. If he set his heart upon man, if he gather unto himself his spirit and his breath, all flesh shall perish together, and man shall return again unto what? Unto the dust. We're all going back to dust, aren't we? I love the picture of Jesus on the cross. Okay? We talked about Jesus forgiving individuals in our lesson this morning. That was His first saying. We get to His last sayings, and one of the things that He says is what? Father, into Thy hand I commend my spirit. Jesus knew, I'm about to die. Jesus knew, I am about to have my spirit separate from what? From my body. And I wrote down some things there. Jesus told the penitent thief, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. He didn't mean today both of us are going to be hanging on the cross dead together. That's not what, because he could have told the other thief that too, couldn't he? What did he mean? We're going to be somewhere else today after this day is over. And it's a place called paradise, is it not? So Jesus knew my spirit is going somewhere else. My spirit is going to be taken from my body, and I'm not going to be here anymore. Did His body stay on the cross? Oh, yes. I wrote down here a few things about His body. It was pierced by the spear of a Roman soldier, wasn't it? It was craved by a man named Joseph, who went to Pontius Pilate, craved the body of Jesus. Just the what? Just the body. It was released to Joseph by Pontius Pilate. It was wrapped and placed in Joseph's tomb. Wow. It was enclosed with a large stone on the door and sealed by the Roman authorities. That's the what? That's the body. But guess what? Jesus wasn't there. He was where? He was in paradise with the other, with that thief, was he? Now that's what he told him. You know, it's hard for us to truly appreciate what goes on at death. You know that? True or false? Death is a part of the living experience. Yeah. You live long enough, you what? You die. That's just part of it. Turn over to Hebrews for just a minute. Hebrews 5. This is an interesting passage. This is free. It's not in the notes. Hebrews 5. Beginning of verse 8. This is a very familiar passage, but we don't talk about one part of this. Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. Now look at this next statement. And being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey him. And being made perfect. That little word perfect there means full, complete, entire, mature, full grown. Until Jesus experienced death, he was not a complete man. You know it? Is that true? Yeah. If God had just intervened and zapped Jesus up off the cross into heaven, Jesus could not have ever claimed to have been a man like me and you. The only way he could claim that is to what? Experience everything that we experience. And one of the things we experience is what? Is death. Now here's something that's interesting. There's not a person in here who is yet a full-grown human being spiritually. You want to know why? You haven't died yet. When you do that, then you've what? Then you've done everything a human does in this life, don't you? And death is part of the process. It's, So here we are. We have Jesus in paradise. We have Jesus' body on the cross, taken down from the cross, put in a tomb, isn't it? Two different places. And it tells us exactly what death is. All who die will experience this same separation of the body from the spirit. How many deaths are there? How many deaths will you experience? I'm talking about physical death. That's what we're talking about. How many physical... I know I have to be very specific with this crew. Okay, I thought we were talking about physical death. How many deaths... how many physical deaths will all of us experience? One. Just one. Okay? And as appointed unto man once to die, and after this the judgment. Okay? Now, you hear statements like this. He died and he was brought back to life. No, he didn't. He never died. Okay? Because there's only one what? There's only one death. Okay? Just one death. You only die once. Not 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. You may flatline, right? You may quit breathing, but you never what? If you come back to life, and that's a bad use of term, because you were never what? You were never dead. If you are dead, you're not coming back. Okay? You're not coming back because you only die once. Now, another interesting thing is this to me, and I believe a lot of things that are going on, that people have all these, what they call near-death experiences. I think there's a reason for that. Okay? Can you get real close to that line of death where the spirit and the body separate? Can you get close to that? I believe you can. Okay? I believe you can get very close to that while we're living. And guys, when you get that close to that part that animates your body versus your body itself, crazy things can go on. You know it? A lot of things in your mind can transpire. And to me it explains why individuals have these near-death experiences. And what's interesting is that a lot of near-death experiences aren't, a lot of them are similar, but you go read about them, and a lot of them are not similar. Okay, everybody tells you, oh, I saw a bright light, right? I had a friend of mine, he had a massive stroke, and he says, Vic, I can see it to this day. He says, I stepped out and I was stepping on a ledge. And he said, I could have stepped off that ledge or I could go back. And he said, I turned around and I went back. And he lived through that stroke. But he said, I was just standing right on a ledge. He said, I could just dropped off that ledge. Now, why did he see a ledge? He didn't see a light, he said. But see, they're just crazy things that go on because of that separation, that animated part of our being, okay? And but the body is still present, but the life as we know it, that animated body, is gone, isn't it? It's gone. Rodney.
You know, maybe about a few days before my mother passed, I walked into her bedroom, and when she saw me, she went like this, get down, son, get down. She was seeing something evil there.
Oh, really?
She said it was a bad man is in here.
See, when we get near that end, you know, I don't think we'll ever be able to explain any of that. Okay, all of that's in whose hands? All of that's in God's hands. Man will never create life, and you know, it's just something that is you know, the Bible says God is life, isn't He? He is the very source of life, and a lot of crazy things will go on. Questions, comments, anybody? Yes, sir.
One thing that amazes me is we as Christians, a lot of times, especially on social media, you'll see people use the wrong verbiage like, happy heavenly birthday to my dad or my mom. Well, they really think about it, they're not in heaven yet, they're in paradise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If you get down to the nuts and bolts of it all, as far as where they actually are, you know, Paul made a statement that it is better for me to die and be with who? With Christ. Okay? So did Paul immediately, when he died, enter into heaven where Christ is? See? Or did he first enter into the Hadean realm, and then eventually he would go and be with the Christ. Okay, and so we're getting into a whole different study right now, right? Okay, we really only want to define what death is. Okay, but where do the dead go? That's a good study, isn't it? A great study. Who else? Somebody else? Nobody? Look at Ecclesiastes 12:8. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. All is what? Vanity. After reading and studying this book, I would almost choose that as one of the key verses. Okay, I think I'd choose that verse, and I'd choose Ecclesiastes 12:13. Okay, as the two key verses. Notice what we says. Man applies himself diligently to live when he is young. Then he grows old and faces hardship and adversity. Eventually he just what? He just dies. He just dies. Now notice point B. If this is all there is for man, then life can be described with the word vanity of vanities. All is what? All is vanity. Guys, if all we do is live and die, then life is what? It's vain. It's empty. It's useless. It's worthless. The question is this: does a man's life really count for much? Now I'm talking about if all we do is live and die, and that's all there is. You live, you die, and that's all there is. Does our life really account for much? Guys, you want to know how many people know Victor Eskew? Very few. Very few. Right? I'm no Taylor Swift. Now she's known all over the world, is she not? Billions of people know her. They don't know me, do they? And the little world in which I operate in the course of all human events is pretty insignificant, isn't it? As I'm driving sometime, I'll be on a dark road somewhere, a country road, and all of a sudden I'll see a house over here. And inside is a light that's on, and maybe if it's wintertime, you'll see smoke coming out of the fireplace. And you know what I think? I think this: there's a family in there. And guess what? That family has a bunch of stuff going on in their lives. And guess what? I don't know squat about it. Nothing. Do I? I don't know anything about it. And guess what? I never will. Unless I stopped in and started asking them some questions. Hey, I saw your fireplace. I want to know something about you. They think that's crazy. Probably get shot if I'm in a country road somewhere. You see, on point B, it says 1C. Even those who do contribute a lot to life are quickly forgotten by the living. Now, don't look at your notes. Don't look at your notes. See, I have to tell you 4 times because you know what I'm about to ask you in those notes and you want to say it. Okay? Who discovered DNA? Is that pretty important? Guys, let me tell you something. The discovery of DNA is of vital importance to our health. Who knows the man's name? Ain't that a hoot? Nobody knows. Made a massive discovery for the benefit of humanity. We don't even know his name. How about this one? Who was it that first suggested that the earth revolved around the sun? Wrong. But that's what we're told. But it's not so. See, now y'all are looking back at your notes again. I'm going to slap y'all. Okay, I told y'all don't do that. Okay, man, y'all are terrible students. Goodness, send y'all to the elders. Who is the father of electricity? Huh? No, not Edison. That's what everybody thinks. Ben Franklin discovered electricity. No, he didn't. He discovered electricity was in lightning, but he didn't discover electricity. Now look at your notes. Frederick Miescher discovered DNA 1869. Aristarchus of Samos, he lived from 230 to about 310 BC. He was one of the first that suggested the earth revolved around the sun. William Gilbert is known as the father of electricity, and he lived in the 1500s and early 1600s. Here are three individuals who have made significant discoveries, contributions, and guess what? We don't know who they are. And guess what's going to happen to you when you die? Same thing. It's going to happen a lot quicker. Isn't it? A lot quicker. It's sad. Notice point 2 there. Some will live and die without God in their lives, won't they? The atheist, there is no God. He'll live and die. You know what his life is? His life is exactly what Solomon said. Vanity of vanities. You're useless here on earth. The wealthy, those who trust in their riches, same thing, right? Unbelievable. How about the other one, the laborer? Because there's some people who think that they're here just to work and work and work and work and work, right? And guess what? The laborer's just going to what? He's just going to die. Man. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get individuals to understand the vanity of life without God? You know what? If every person that lived in this neighborhood could understand your life is vain and empty and worthless without God being in it. If we could just get them to understand that, could we radically change our society? Yeah. But you see, there's a lot of people who don't see any need for God. And folks, if that's the case, our life is what? It's vanity. Unbelievable. Thank you, thank you.